Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 228 of the Lookout Sir Warhammer podcast, presented by myself, Dan, and obviously not just me. Phil is here too, aren't you, Phil? Aren't you?
I'm not here. I am a voice recording. Leave a message after the tone. Beep.
Beep. Yep, fair. Welcome, Phil, to episode 228. You happy to be here? Always a joy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I won't carry on the skit of being a voicemail. It's always good to be here.
It's almost Christmas, Phil, isn't it?
It is. I had my dear mum asked me if I wanted any Warhammer this year, and my answer, I didn't say it to her, was no, because they always cynically tut and go, more Warhammer? Don't you have enough already? So I was like, I won't put any on the list. This year, they want Warhammer because my mum got one of those web store anniversary £10 vouchers.
Oh, I see. So now is an incentive
she wants to
buy
spend the voucher, yeah. So she's like, oh, can I buy you anything?
The power of that £10 voucher, a relatively nominal amount of money in the world of Warhammer purchasing power.
I know.
But enough to persuade mums.
Exactly, because I've got one, and it's like, well, if you gave me yours, Mum, I've got £20. That I could actually buy something with that. Whereas a £10 voucher is, well, just about. Like normally, I scrape through and get some paints because it's like I don't want to have to spend £30-40 to use a £10 voucher when I could probably buy that thing from somewhere like Element Games, and it would still be that £10 cheaper anyway because of a discount.
Yeah. That is the way it goes, my friend. But anyway, well, you know, hopefully you'll get an abundance of Warhammer now. You'll get all of those new Space Marine minis you want for your ever-expanding collection of Minotaurs.
Well, see, you joke. I kind of wouldn't mind the Victrix Honor Guard because they're kind of cool looking.
And power gamer.
Well, I know they're broken, but here's the thing. By the time I built and painted them, they would be rubbish. The polite way of putting it. Yeah, because that's often the way. But I like the idea of maybe leaning into a chapter like or Ultramarines and doing a Minotaur's take on it. Just to give me a bit of character and variation in the model range, and I can run them as like proxies, so I can be like, cool, this named character, like Minus Calgar, could actually be the Minotaur's chapter, like Master, or something like that. So, yeah, I would be quite tempted to do that.
Well, fair. Well, there you go. Well, hopefully you get some of that stuff, mate, and your dreams will become a reality. But what are we going to be talking about in episode 228, Phil?
Well, we are not doing the Crusade Pariah Nexus. That is a next week episode because, again, it requires reading. We're not quite there yet. So instead, we are talking about this week's Grotmas Advent Calendar, whether we think it's good or not. Spoilers. Not. And we are also talking about the success or failure of Warhammer Quest: Dark Waters.
Absolutely. We are speculating wildly on that particular topic and seeing where that takes us. And so that's it, really. A bit of a general chit-chat about that. Obviously, thank you very much to those of you who have given us 5-star reviews in the past. This week's 5-star review comes via AndyS.78. something or other. They have given us a 5-star review via Apple Podcasts of Great Britain, so we'll get into that in a moment as we transition into the 5-star review segment. Additionally, we do obviously have some merchandise available over on Rev Level, so please, if you get the chance, click through to the links in the description below and check out all of that fun stuff. And a massive thank you to everyone out there who is supporting us on Patreon. It is obviously a hugely appreciated and massively helpful thing that enables us to keep on doing this silly nonsense. So thank you to our patrons, and if you would like to be amongst those fine individuals, we would massively appreciate your support and would encourage you to do so, but only if you can afford it. Obviously, times is tough, so no pressure or worries. Your listening ship is more than enough. but obviously money is also good. Isn't that right, Phil?
Exactly. We would appreciate it, but I'm sure you've all been bankrupted buying Warhammer Quest.
Well, absolutely. In all probability. All right, well, there we go. There's all the words. Let's get on to the 5-star review segment before we get into the main bulk of whatever it is we're talking about. Transitional noise. So, as was already stated, this podcast's 5-star review has been given to us by Andy S-78- need a unique handle, ! There you go. And they've given us a 5-star review via Apple Podcasts of Great Britain, Phil. We do well in the Britons. And it reads, emergency 5-star review. Now, the implication of that statement would be that we gave some indication that we were getting towards the end of our 5-star reviews and were, as a result, going to stop doing the podcast. I mean, that still technically remains true in so much as there are only a handful more 5-star reviews above this one.
Oh dear.
So if any of you want to give us 5-star reviews, now is a good time to do so, because assuming we put out an episode a week for the next couple of weeks before Christmas, we'll only have a couple 5-star reviews left spoken about.
Oh dear. And if there's none for the new year, we're just stuck. That's how it works.
That's it. That's how it goes. That's the pact that we make. So thank you to Andy for giving us a 5-star review and obviously acknowledging our emergency status. And we encourage you, dear listener, to maybe do the same because, we need you. But anyway, as I say, emergency 5-star review. Don't do it, guys. Don't give up. We need you in our lives. Smiling face. Long-time listener here who loves listening to your wonderful ramblings that kept me up to date on all things Warhammer. I appreciate the balance of news, model releases, lore and rules updates that enable me to keep up with what's happening in our crazy hobby. Dyslexia is a powerful force multiplier there. Anyway, well-informed discussions, easy listening, all delivered with good dollops of British humour and scepticism that appeals to a middle-aged hobbyist like me. Oh, there you go, Phil. Isn't it lovely to know that we've arrived at middle-aged hobbyist status?
Exactly. One step away from Napoleonics, as I always say.
When we started, Phil, we were young and hip, right? That was the thing. We were in our sort of, early 30s, living the dream. And now look at us, old men.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm literally wearing a cardi right now, so it's it's very true.
There you go. It feels like listening to old friends, and whilst I know you are only joking about 5-star reviews, it does offer the opportunity to say that if you did stop, how much you've been missed. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Who knows? Maybe we will end up having to put that to the test at some point soon, but certainly not today. So, well done there. One request, it would be wonderful if you could please include links to the community pages, releases, etc. in that you are reviewing to make following along so much easier without having to search for them. Keep going, lads. For the Emperor. There we go. What was the thing they always used to say in Heresy before the thing? For, the Emperor, loved by all. That's what they would say. Anyway, thank you very much, Andy, for your incredible 5-star review. You are a scholar, a gentleman, and various other lovely words that denote your general excellence. So cheers very much for the 5-star review. And to elaborate on that further is, of course, Phil.
Thank you, Andy. Username, struggling to find a unique username, which gives us the impression that you created it specifically to leave us a review, which we, one, appreciate. Two, we appreciate it even more if this is like your second review and you've gone above and beyond the usual. So that is fantastic. Thank you very much. Glad you enjoyed the format. I guess we could include links because when we do the review episodes of things like the reveal show, often we're just looking at the one master article that lists all of them, which is why last time we were doing it backwards, because that's how they posted them, because it was newest to oldest. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind for future, if we can remember.
Absolutely. If only we could remember. But yeah, no, cheers very much, Andy. You're a gent. And yeah, cheers for everyone else who's left and or is considering leaving us a 5-star review. We appreciate you. And to show that appreciation, we're going to shut up and get on with the episode. Cheers, Transition Noise. All right, everybody. We're going to have just a general chat about Grotmas and various other things. It's one of those episodes, you know, where we're just going to have a bit of a natter about things in the general sense, right, Phil?
Yeah. Let's see what comes our way.
Indeed, that is what we shall be doing. Sorry, I don't know why there. I almost said return because I was looking at the article where they were talking about how a Crute and a Cities of Sigmar, general geese that are being made available to purchase once more by some set of conditions.
Yeah, I think they have a Boxing Day miniature, I think they've called it. And I think previously that Boxing Day miniature has been, I could be wrong, but a new miniature, whereas this is the Warhammer event exclusive miniature for the year that, or I don't think it was this year, but maybe a previous year, that people have wanted, but is actually quite difficult to get hold of.
Yes. So now they are making it possible for you to get hold of those on the day of boxing, Friday the 26th of December, the year 2025. You can purchase yourself a Crute wielding his Crute rifle and or some kind of Cities of Sigmar martial type individual wearing crows-like attire in a crow's manner, you would say, wouldn't you, Phil?
Well, I would do, actually, yes.
Yeah, would you? You're a fan of those kind of statements. That's exciting. Will you be picking up the Crow Man or potentially even the Crute Boy?
No. I mean, the Crow one is very cool, and when it first appeared as an event exclusive, I would have loved to get my hands on it.
But now that it's just readily available, you're like, meh, it's lost all its luster. I'm not interested.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily FOMO, but I think there is a certain aspect of exclusivity to it. But I think also I really wanted it when it was first possible to get it. So now it feels like it's quite an old miniature. I have less of that immediate desire to be like, oh my God. But it's also the just acknowledgement of, while it is a cool miniature, I tend very rarely, if at all, to just buy, build and paint a miniature for an army that I do not collect. And I know there's plenty of people out there that do that. And
crazy people.
All power to you, because that is a very cool thing to do. I don't know if they're the majority of hobbyists and we are the minority that actually game. I'm not entirely sure, but we're definitely, if we are the minority, we're the vocal minority.
Without a doubt, yeah. We're more of
the more vocal minority are the competitive gamers, which is an even smaller minority, I imagine. Yeah, it's a cool miniature. I'd be tempted to get it, but I just think I'll pass because I've got enough to do.
I got it.
What about you?
Oh, sorry. Is there a delay here, Phil? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. That was just weird. It seemed like there was some kind of delay, but we're all good again. How about me? No, of course not. I'm not going to get either of them. Waste of time. But cool minis, I just don't care.
Fair. Yeah, the Crow one specifically is my fave out of the two.
Oh, yeah, if I was going to do it, I'd get the Crow Boy, but no. So, yeah, it's all good. You know, again, like you said, if they had anything to do with anything that I particularly wanted, then I would get them. But as it is, I'm not that bothered, you know?
Yeah, I think that's often the way with the faction-specific ones, is you've really got to have that faction to have a real desire to collect it, which is why we probably normally see just Space Marines being done.
Yes, yeah, typically. It's why the Space Marine Lieutenant is so gosh darn useful, I suppose.
That is true, yeah.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, sorry. That was that in terms of things that are going on. Obviously, Grotmas has begun as well. And that's been met with a certain amount of trepidation, unimpressedness, general vibes, I would say, thus far. We're only 4 days into it, but it seems like people are suggesting that it's pretty lackluster at this point.
That's true, but I feel like it's because last year it set the bar so high with the Grotmas detachments for both AOS and 40k.
It did. And I will agree with that much, that I think, when they did what they did last year, they did set a very, very reasonable benchmark in terms of what people could probably expect from these releases and what people could be expecting. Evidently, they weren't going to go down the route of doing, a lot of new detachments again. Although I imagine at some point we'll start to see some detachments coming into the mix.
It'd be interesting. I suspect maybe the rules writers are completely over 10th edition and they're far too busy doing stuff for 11th edition at this point in time to go back to giving us fresh final content for 11th edition. Sorry, 10th edition.
I don't know. This is the time where they start doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we received a slew of new data sheets, or rather not data sheets, but detachments as a result of either Grotmas or the heavily rumoured upcoming, well, I think pretty much outright understood to be happening, balanced data sheet that will be inevitably releasing at some point before the end of the year. Because I think they even referenced it in an email I received the other day about the Warhammer Team Championships. They were like, oh, just so you know, any detachments that are announced as part of Grotmas or any kind of army rules that come out as part of the upcoming balanced data slate will not be valid for this event. So they have
interesting.
They have somewhat acknowledged that through email comms for the event.
It might be, though, that they don't know and they're just speculating in advance.
That's true.
Because that sort of thing happened last year. But as you say, who knows? It might be that they're actually coming and they're gently warming us up with some general hobby content, which actually sort of says something about the awful state of us as hobbyists, that we've been given some generic content that will be suitable for everyone and no one's happy about it because all we want is, detachment rules for 40k, basically.
Yeah, we have become a little bit jaded, shall we say, in terms of our expectations. I think, again, though, like you were saying from the outset, an illustration or indication towards more of the kind of vocal minority element of the online discourse around Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 specifically. The people who are most actively communicating about Warhammer 40k are definitely going to be the sorts of people that are most infused by this stuff specifically. So, somewhat makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
One of the things I did notice as well, by the way, with the Grotmas calendar, because we're on day 4 today, right? And one of the things that's sort of odd about it was that what they've done is they've given you this rather lovely, illustration of this house. And I think the intent is that each of these different panels is supposed to, in some way, potentially hint towards things that could take place within those releases. And then
I think that's pure speculation. I don't think that's
No, I agree with you on that front. But maybe that would have been smart and sensible had they done it. But the point is these images are here as the images that they are. And then 1 through 3 have essentially given us illustrated images of those areas kind of come to life, suggesting that at one point they had probably intended to actually update the master image as time went on to add these additional details to said image. Because if you look at panel 1, when you look at it in the image, it's like a crane with a bunch of wrapping paper around it, but not much going on. But then when you look at the thumbnail for Article 1, Titus arrives in Ultramar, there's, grots with Christmas hats and a grot with a bazooka.
You're right. I did not notice
Yeah.
That's quite. You're right. And the second one's got Grots playing guitars.
Yeah.
The third one's got Grots with presents going up the stairs. But then the fourth one is just a picture of some ghosts. So it's like they ran out of what's the surprise.
I think this suggests to me, though, I think this is the funny thing, though, because that suggests that already there's been some upheaval in terms of what people were hoping for or what was going on, and maybe I'm sure behind the scenes there's all sorts of disarray around all of this kind of stuff, because it strikes me as odd that images 1, 2, and 3 would have these kind of Grotmas alternatives of them, or rather the Grot kind of incorporated alternatives, and then number 4 is just a picture of a ghostly face, which has no reference at all to the fridge or pot or Christmas lights that are present in panel 4.
Yeah, that's a bit of an odd choice. And because I immediately thought, oh, cool, these, because it's the calendar hub, so it's a page you're meant to go back to. You would assume that you can tap on each one and it would be like a hot link to that page, and no, it's just an image. So it might be that was the original intention, and as you say, each day it will open up, and that image would get updated, which would make perfect sense and be a nice thing to go back to each day to see that evolving. Or even if it wasn't just the thumbnail, but when you click, say you clicked on number 1, so number 1 doesn't show you the reveal, but you click into that article and the first thing is like the picture of what's behind the door, so it feels like you're opening it up yourself. That would maybe make more sense. And then maybe, on day 2, day 1's been updated, sort of backdated, to show it open just like an actual calendar. So yeah, odd choice. It might be they've just generally forgotten to do, but maybe there's been other reasons why. Maybe that was the original plan and then it just sort of fell through.
Yeah, because the thing that's interesting as well is if you scroll to the bottom of the Grotmas articles, they've got the catch up on the Grotmas calendar, and you can go back and view all. And even the kind of banner that sits at the bottom has panels like 16, 20. So it's got panels 16, 20, 11, 3, 5, 13, basically kind of shown, but they've shown them in their kind of final form. So even if they were trying to like reveal fun little quirky images, they've also sort of spoiled some of those there. Not that anyone really cares about this, but yeah, it's sort of a weird one, right? Because it feels like there's supposed to be a level of greater interactivity or effort, because clearly someone has been paid or someone has done a lot of work to create all of this artwork, to create something a bit more kind of joyful and exciting. It just seems that it's obviously failed a bit in terms of its execution across the website.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. The catch up on the Grotmas is the final calendar revealed in a sliver. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a bit of a mistake. But
it's a bit all over the place.
Maybe that's clearly what it's meant to do, and it's clearly meant to update each day, and they've not done it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well. I mean, that's the thing. I guess if they... Because, maybe they could have had just a series of JPEGs for the different days and then just cycled the website. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's like a weird caching issue or whatever. Maybe if you, remove your cookies from your browser or whatever, maybe it does refresh to show you the new thing. Although this is the first time I'm looking at it, so my guess is that it's not a cookie-related issue. But... who knows, really? But anyway, the Grotmas calendar, technical nuances notwithstanding, has up till now basically been, we're 4 days into it, and we have had a story about Titus that is extraordinarily short, but essentially talks about him arriving in Ultramar and all this other stuff. We've got the housemates of Ashut getting their Scourge of Grairan updates, which are, cool, but again... didn't necessarily feel like a big thing for Grotmas. Certainly not like new detachments and things like we got last year, when we got new Regiments of Renown, new Regiments of Renown for OOS and new detachments for 40k. all we basically got was a Scourge of Gyran update that really House has desperately needed and should have probably have had from the outset. It's sort of weird that they didn't get it from the off.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that they didn't need it because it's a brand new detachment, a brand new army. So therefore, why would they need these sort of extra ways to play? However, you could also argue from a balance point of view, everyone else has got one, so why haven't they? And I think it's also sort of acknowledging maybe some of the issues with some of the units that they've tweaked. My favourite bit about it is basically the War Despot, who's like the leader model, has a pistol on his person. It exists on the model, but on the War Scroll, it is not in the rules whatsoever. And they've done that a few times. If I remember rightly, you've got a Skaven character that has a pistol, but it has no rules for a pistol. Is that right? One of the new ones?
Not a character, but there is so basically the Storm Vermin.
Oh, is it the leader model?
Champion it's modelled with a pistol, but the pistol has no rules.
A similar thing, but that's like a model within a unit, which would maybe muddy the complications of the rules. But this is a character, so you would have thought it would. Now, in its Scourge of Goran version, it doesn't have a pistol profile, but it has a special pistol special rule that you can shoot into a unit, and then it sort of buffs your units that are maybe in combat with it. So I like that as an acknowledgement from Games Workshop that they sort of messed up a sort of a rule, and it was a thing that fans of that model and army were having an issue with, because they were like, but it's modelled with a pistol, why isn't it in the rules? And they've given that to us. So I think that's very good. And then some of the general rules seem quite interesting as well, in terms of what they can do. So it's a nice addition. It is a fair chunky amount of rules. It's battle traits, it's which are like detachments, it's all army faction special rules. It's got, the sort of relics that you get.
The accursed devices, which are new, by the way. They didn't have accursed devices before, so it's an additional enhancement. So now, if you're taking one of their wizards on top of a bull thing, you can basically have your kind of trait, your artifact, and now your accursed device as well. So you can have like 3 different buffs from one of those things.
So what's interesting, I think, in AOS is your kind of relic sort of artifacts are categorized in different ways, but you're allowed one of each category. So if they ever create a new category, you get that in addition to the existing ones. So because you're allowed to take one from each. Is the way it works. And sometimes they've done that where they've given you a whole brand new category to pick from, which I think is really cool. But most of the time they just tend to give you a replacement for an existing category, which is a bit frustrating, but it's like, okay, fine. It's like, because sometimes there's like best ones in both, and it's like, if I could have both of these things together would be really cool. And then obviously it's got 2 sort of replacement data sheets. One's for the standard warriors with the swords, and then one's for the War Despot as well. So, that's both cool, I think, because they are, I think, perhaps slightly more lackluster War Scrolls from the book, basically. So I think that's a good addition. But as you said, it's one that you sort of feel like that they've either saved. They've either done it and saved it specifically for this. It doesn't feel like the Grotmas detachments where it was like, this is something specific to, the Christmas Grotmas calendar that we weren't getting otherwise. Everything so far really in the Grotmas detachment sort of feels like general stuff that would have just been released on Warcom anyway. And that's sort of, I think, the feel bad from the Grotmas detachment so far.
It's not even a Grotmas detachment, let's be fair.
Sorry, not Grotmas detachment, the Grotmas calendar, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, day 3 was a painting guide for loyalist legions in Horus Heresy. And again, don't get me wrong, painting guide, so to speak, is a novel way of saying it, because essentially it's just a list of paints and, a more detailed sort of list of paints, admittedly, but again, this is one of those things where you feel like, could we not have, gotten some kind of like multimedia support or some other kind of content that supports this? So if you were to give us a, painting guide for Dark Angels, maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't have hurt for you to have, accompanied that with some videos or maybe just general kind of insights beyond just listing the paints that you have put down there. And then this kind of key where essentially a circle indicates what they're calling a simple scheme. But again, it's just a very odd thing to just be given, again, a JPEG and a supporting text document that just literally reads, basically black undersuit, base, Abaddon black, chunky highlights, Eshin grey, highlights, Dawnstone. It's like, well, I mean, that's essentially just your paint system. It's like, it's almost, I don't know. It doesn't feel, given obviously as well the amount of stuff that has already been put out there explaining to you how to paint these sorts of miniatures. It just feels, again, this does really feel very lackluster in the sense of, I don't know. It feels like there's all sorts of tools and insights and information out there already. This almost sort of, it's like, paint a salamander. How do I paint it green? Oh, I use green. Good. Cheers, GG. Never would have worked that out, it's a bit of a weird.
So I was just looking at the download version of the PDF, which I think is slightly better, because when I looked at the website version, some of these are actually wrong, and they don't give you colours that are on the model. So, for example, Blood Angels, they've got a colour scheme for white. There is literally no white on that model, but there is gold, but the gold isn't listed on that one. Let me try and find another one. Likewise, Imperial Fist, that has the recipe for the gold, but there's no gold on the Imperial Fist model. And it also says red markings and helmet lenses. And obviously the helmet lens is red, but there are no red markings on that model whatsoever. Similar, Space Wolves has a thing for red markings, but it doesn't have red markings. It's got helmet lenses. So I feel like they've maybe just copy and pasted those sort of color schemes and naming conventions and just sort of applied them quite generically to all of them, not got them all quite right. I think if I remember, the White Scar one was, maybe the White Scar one was correct, because that's got metal, gold, red, black, helmet. Yeah, unless they've updated it since, but some of them were definitely really egregious in terms of the colouring not quite matching up on all of them. So
and again,
it's just a bit odd,
right? Like, here's the thing: to be clear, if they gave us a PDF that detailed the paint schemes of the Imperial Fists and denoted their different companies and their different, organizational structures, and created more of a kind of historical based insight into color schemes of all the different kind of timings and other stuff, or they said it within a particular period. They were like, okay, well, this is when, just before Horus has turned, and the Imperial Fists have been summoned back to Terra to build, the fortifications of the Imperial Palace. So this is basically set at the time where the Imperial Fists are basically wrapping up the crusade to return to Terra to join the Emperor and start fortifying the, Imperial Palace. So basically, that was about, within the grand scheme of the heresy, that was probably like a 2 to 3 year period where the Imperial Fists were wrapping up their affairs to leave, right? If they gave you a really detailed insight into, here are the different companies and here are their markings and here is all the different ways you can paint them, and this is a real deep dive into a really particular type of fluff, I think I'd be all about that. I'd be like, that's amazing. Like, that's great. Show me all the different things and give me all this context and make it feel, real, make it feel substantial. But essentially, yeah, it's just sort of like, yeah, I mean, this is how you paint yellow. It's like, oh, cheers, guys. Appreciate you. Like, there's
a few things to note. One, on the PDF, like, so for Imperial Fist, where it mentions gold, which isn't on the model, there's actually a picture of the Terminator with the gold trim. So there's obviously, I think the PDF's the one to reference, basically, and they do have lines going from.
But what does that mean, Phil? What does that picture of a Terminator in black and gold actually tell you?
Well, it's telling you this is the gold trim used on this Terminator. That is the context.
Oh, actually, they have text here. There you go. The Imperial Fist wear distinctive yellow banded with black bearing, occasionally. The Legion's elite first company invert this heraldry, wearing battle plate almost entirely of black, with only the helms and pauldrons yellow. So.
And then
the pauldrons are yellow. But yeah, so they're not even gold, mate.
Yeah, but I think that's slightly better. And the thing I was going to say with the simplified colour scheme, so what I think they've done is they've taken the heavy metal colour schemes, which whenever you look at them are quite mad. They're normally strange, arcane ratios of 3 different paints mixed together for every single layer, base, highlight that they do, which is always a bit frustrating because it's like, this should be the Imperial Fist yellow. You give it to me as a paint mixed in that colour, not take your ears yellow and make your own yellow from it. That's quite frustrating, but I sort of get it when you need to correct. If you're doing like 5 different gradual shades of highlights, that makes total sense. I do find it frustrating when they do tend to mix their own colours, but it also works and it looks great, so you can't criticise it for that. But that's why they go, here's the simplified version of it, where we're not giving you those obscure ratios. We're just going to, give you the base paint closest approximated to this colour to give you a look. And I would like to think that the pictures of the models they've supplied have been painted in that simplified scheme, but I suspect what we're probably seeing is the heavy metal version, and we're just getting the recipes for streamlined version. And they've got a lot of detail in those schemes, so it's if they were to break it down even further, maybe it'd be too much. But
I just think this is the thing. I think ultimately telling me how to paint white armor is fine, I suppose, but I think it would have just been nicer had it been a bit more, again, a actual Grotmas gift type thing would have just been maybe, like a document that talks more about the Legion structure and gives more insights. That would have been nice. That's all I would have. I'm just talking about what would have been preferable, I suppose, to this.
Okay.
It's like,
I mean, I don't mind it. I just think it needs to be a bit more correct, because sometimes it feels like they've given us a colour scheme for a transfer on the model, and it's like, well, this hasn't been painted. This isn't freehand. This isn't a marking I've painted on. It's just a transfer. So why have you given me a colour to it? And likewise, when you look at the Imperial Fist one on the website, it references gold, but there's no gold on that mini. That's kind of confusing. So I can see they've sort of done it for social media buzz. But actually, if they hadn't had these and it just linked you to the PDF, it would probably actually make more sense to people, and there'd be maybe less criticism of what's going on, because it would, actually link to the correct colours. I mean, again, my one criticism, I guess, of overall is this would have been a great thing to put out when you released 3rd edition Heresy, rather than save it all the way till Christmas to give it to us as part of this. It feels like such a generic thing that I'm surprised they haven't done it already.
Yeah, it is very peculiar, to say the very least. It's not a particularly compelling thing. A list of paints I can buy and apply in various ways fine. And then the two stories. So like the Titus one is pretty underwhelming. Did you read the Titus one, Phil?
I read the first few paragraphs and then my brain switched off and I couldn't read any more. I think the problem is one, I struggle with just general reading lore in books anyway. If I'm going to read a Black Library novel, I tend to just have it in audiobook format. If I'm reading the lore like we've been doing with the Tranic War, for example, I much prefer reading from a book. Reading on a screen, a lot of text, my brain can't really cope with it, and I just don't. It's not enjoyable to be sat at a computer for 15 minutes trying to read a story. It's like I don't want to do it on my phone either. I'd rather do it in a physical book format. And my preference is to just have someone read it to me like I'm a child, basically, from Audible. So, yeah, I can understand that this is like a good all-round series of releases where we've got some painting guides, we've got some stories, because some people are really into the story side of it, and the people that just, love Black Library, I suspect these articles are for them when it comes to like the Titus and the Nighthaunt ones. But for me, whenever I see them, I just always ignore them because I'll skim through it to see how long it is and be like, it's too long.
So, I mean, in short, you read some of it. It's basically a general, holding out against a bunch of Tyranids yet again, right? So a bunch of Tyranids. Oh no, we're in real trouble. And I believe he's inside like a tower or something, and it's all terrible. And then just while they were feeling really low, a Vox comes through and goes, "It's me, Titus." And they go, "Yay! Titus is cool. Ultramarines are cool. We're gonna fight extra hard." The end. It's like, what? It's like, what is it to do with anything? It was like, oh, good. Great. Brilliant. It's basically Titus arrives at Ultramar and essentially they're in trouble. He goes, "Don't worry, I'll turn up eventually." Done. And you're like, brilliant. Great. Titus is coming. He's great. Brilliant. But again, there's no real context. Hang on, let me just double check again. Let me read these words just to make sure I've not missed anything stupid. Where's he gone? Here we go. Titus arrives on... Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Titus arrives on Terra, blah, 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 blah. Let me just search, make sure I'm not... it looks like even the news can make a huge difference. So it's not actually entirely clear at this point whether he is a captain or whether this is back when he's a lieutenant. But I assume he is a captain at this point. But then it's him returning to Ultramar. The logic being that is he a captain when he's going back there, or does he become a captain when he's there and then gets charged with, is him being charged with the ascension, or is the ascension to captaincy a product of his new charge to take back the 500 worlds? Again, and what does this have to do with the 500 worlds? It's like, well, okay, he went back to Ultramar and then he became, it's just really underwhelming, mate, in terms of a narrative. It's just sort of just basically a bunch of poor old people locked up in a conflict get told that Titus is coming and they go, "Yay!" And that's it. It's brilliant, well done. What a tale.
Yeah, maybe it would have been great if it was more a setup or a lead into the 500 worlds, or a story about him actually getting the promotion, sort of mirroring what you got in the video. Personally, my favourite form of a lore dump or story exposition from Games Workshop, like they did with Prior Nexus, are these very short, semi-animated illustrations, basically, that they did a bunch for Prior Nexus, where it's like a tiny animation telling you a little bit about the story, and then there's a moody voiceover from someone, but it's effectively minimalistic animation where they've just taken a bunch of illustrations and, layered them and moved them around a bit to give them some life. And the lore dump from the voiceover is sort of enough to be like, okay, cool, this is engaging. It takes 2 minutes to watch. A super passive way of consuming the information. That I much prefer. But that obviously does require a bit of effort because it requires artists and animators and a voice actor and someone to put all of that together. Whereas this requires a Black Library author or an author of some description to just write some stuff and then they publish it. So that's obviously a lot more straightforward. And obviously people do enjoy that form of content, but it's not personally for me.
No. And I haven't read the Nighthaunt one. So I couldn't. It literally came out this afternoon, and I was busy, so I haven't got around to reading it. But is it good? Did you read any of it?
No, because like I said, I saw text and I was like, even though it's Nighthaunt, so maybe I will try and read it. But it's it just doesn't. I don't know. Just doesn't fill me with interest to want to read it. No.
I agree, and it's a bit more text than the Titus one, so I just kind of, when I scrolled down and saw there was quite a bit to it, I was like, oh, God, I can't be bothered. At least when you look at the Titus one, you sort of scroll down and go, it's manageable, I suppose, in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens every time when there's, like, what seems like an interesting lore article, and then it's just a bunch of narrative text, and, I mean, that sounds really awful, but, yeah, I just really struggle with them.
Yeah. But I think, again, like going back to what we were talking about last episode with regards to the Tyrannic War, like I'm not even, again, it's like within the timeline, like when is, because again, if Titus is a captain, the events of the Tyrannic War have kind of been presumably concluded or relatively laid to rest because it's some 200 years after or whatever, and he's ascended and Gilliman's sending him off to do the 500 worlds or whatever it is. So it's like, so what? It's just again.
Well, no, I mean, it might be it's still ongoing because I don't think there's any we don't know the time difference between
all the time.
Tyrannic War versus the 500 Worlds. Like they could both be happening at the same time, effectively, but obviously 500 Worlds is post Space Marine 2. And I suspect the Tyrannic War will still be ongoing, even though they won like that campaign in that specific sector. I'm sure. But as you say, the fact that they just having a quick skim through that article only referred to Titus by his first name, that doesn't give us as readers any context clues to what his rank is or what the timeline is for these things. And I do find that quite frustrating when they do that sometimes with both those books and even the campaign books when they're doing the stories. Like sometimes they're a little bit too vague on stuff and it makes it harder to follow what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a nice story that highlights that Titus is now this legendary hero character in the world of Warhammer, because the idea is that they hear the name Titus and they go, "Way!" So again, I get that it's building his legend, I guess, but it's not a particularly great Grotmas style release. But then at the same time, again, I think the devil's in the detail. When you're looking at something where a character has been delivered to us in a particular medium, I would just like to see some continuation of that or some kind of element of effort to carry on in that vein, I suppose. So it would have been nice maybe to, even if it was, like you say, even if it was just some audio kind of narrative stuff, maybe they got the voice actor in who plays Titus in the games and in the Amazon show and did all that stuff. It's like, whatever. It just, it could have been good. But yeah, that's Grotmas at the moment. Overall, pretty mid. But maybe could be getting better down the line. But I feel like they're just sort of scrambling at this moment in time. But obviously, it's all going to build up to a big Christmas reveal. That's kind of the star of the show, isn't it? When we get to Christmas Day and they reveal some new big sexy Primarch or whatever.
Yeah, have you got any guesses for what it might be?
Well,
what
obviously
you would like it to be.
What would I like it to be? I mean, obviously they've been doing a big push on the Ultramarines stuff again. I've not really massively consulted what the kind of rumor mill is amongst the campaign to further promote Ultramarines and the Macragge news and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation that they were going to be doing yet more Ultramarine releases, and a lot of people have said that that's likely, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'd be disappointed to see it, but I think I can imagine.
Well, they've done those two Calf like protest videos. Did you see those on Warhammer Community? Yeah. Which feels like they wouldn't be doing that unless there is more Ultramarines coming.
Yes.
And obviously we speculated like Tyrannic War veterans or someone like Kronos feels like a bit of a no-brainer, but maybe it's going to be something completely different. I think I remember ages ago there was a vague rumor about maybe they would redo Guilliman as a model because it isn't the best Primarch model. So maybe that would get redone, but then I think that rumor also got quashed. So I don't think it would be that. Potentially it could be another Chaos Primarch, but it just feels a bit too soon to do that sort of thing.
It would be a bit mad to have a Primarch every year for because this is the thing, right? Like last year, I can't remember if it was last year we got Fulgrim, right? And then the year before, I feel like they did the Lion or something. Or was it maybe it wasn't the year before. Maybe that was 2 years before that. But
we had the Lion came out during Arcs of Omen. And then I think the year before was... Was his model released then?
Sorry, Phil, that all went absolutely crazy. Are you still with me? Hello? You still there?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
Say all that again. I missed it.
So the Line came out during Arcs of Omen.
Yes, so that would have been 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but Angron was in a book that was also in Arcs of Omen, but was his model released then, or was his model already out?
His model was already out, I think. I think his model came out as part of the World Eaters release or the World Eaters. It all came kind of simultaneously. The Lion was specifically an Arcs of Omen release, but Angron was a World Eaters Codex release. But yeah, we definitely got why am I forgetting his name now? I said it a second ago. The Emperor's Children Primarch. Fulgrim. Good Lord. Yes, we got Fulgrim last year, and then I wouldn't want to see another Demon Primarch. I mean, there's a lot of rumors doing the rounds that Games Workshop have actually released. Well, it's not even because basically Games Workshop have released a book that has kind of started detailing elements of like the 500 worlds, where it's been heavily rumored. So they've already got like literature out there, and there is a number of things that's like featured within it that people are like, oh, okay, we're going to get miniatures for that. So the one that they're talking about is that Corsairs for the Elder are likely to get a load of new releases. So they're saying like a new Prince Uriel, new Corsair, Jump Infantry, the regular Corsair miniatures that were from Kill Team are going to get moved into like new boxes and have their own new thing. So yeah, like Corsairs seem to be the thing that people are talking about right now as likely to happen.
Yeah, that seems plausible because obviously Corsairs appeared in Kill Team, much like how Krieg first appeared in Kill Team and then years later got their own sort of standalone release. So yeah, I can see that being a thing.
Yeah.
Would Prince Uriel be worthy of a Christmas Day reveal, or is he just not big enough?
I think Prince Uriel alone wouldn't be, but I think Prince Uriel alongside a slew of Eldari releases would be significant. I think if you got new... because the other thing they were rumouring was new Viper jet bikes. That would be super cool. So new Viper jet bikes, new Corsairs minis. I think that would, as a sequence of releases. So if they gave you new Corsair jet bikes, new Viper jet bikes, another kind of like infantry unit, and Prince Uriel and perchance some other, Corsair leadership characters, Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool as a Christmas reveal for people.
It is another alternative. Christmas Day reveal isn't 40k.
Oh,
maybe it'd be
nice.
AOS or even Specialist Games.
I mean, AOS would definitely be cool. I think the thing is that, you know, I think people on Christmas Day get especially
they
angered.
want 40k Primarchs.
They want 40k promos. That is now their Christmas tradition. You know, it has to be 40k as a minimum.
Because
40k
to be fair,
Primarchs preferably.
I sort of feel like the Nightbringer would have been a good 40k Christmas Day reveal because it's like a really big model. But obviously they've said, it was actually meant to be for the last reveal show that we had. So even that isn't the Christmas Day reveal. But then that maybe, because surely it won't come out between now and then. That's got to be a January onwards release anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be...
revealed it.
Yeah, that's going to be before, like, April time, so, like, January, February, March time. And then, I mean, a mad one, which would have been really fun, is if they'd done a new Magnus sculpt rather than, really thrown a curveball into it and done a new sculpt for the very first of the...
because he came out before Gilliman, didn't he?
Yeah, he was the very first Primarch miniature to be re-released in 40k.
But I think his model's fine.
I think his model's fine as well. I just think,
Whereas I think Gilliman does look a bit, I don't know, just doesn't quite work for me.
Maybe it'll be an expansion fill for Warhammer Quest.
Well, it could be. Could be.
We'll get Warhammer Quest Soggy Bottom. And that'll be the way forward. Have you bought Warhammer Quest yet, Phil? You buying it?
No. But I have been eagerly looking at Games Workshop to see if it has sold out yet. And newsflash, it hasn't. And I've looked on other websites that also sell it, like Element Games and some smaller ones, and they all have copies as well. So it does make me wonder, is it actually been a success? Because normally the barometer of success is it sells out within an hour or 10 minutes or whatever. Like within a day, it sells out. Yay, everyone, it's sold out. Games Workshop is happy. Their shareholders are happy. Whereas this time it hasn't, which is comparable to Sigmar launch boxes. And normally the general murmurings is that is therefore disappointing sales-wise because Games Workshop wants things to sell out. They don't want it stuck on shelves. However, the caveat is everyone lost their mind when Curse City immediately sold out and they completely botched the release by not having enough stock whatsoever when it first came out. And then we had to wait literally months and months until they restocked it. And in fact, they didn't even tell us they were going to restock it until they basically did. So I feel like they overestimated how well Darkwater would do to avoid that disappointment. So potentially the fact that it hasn't sold out is good because I sort of feel like it should be an evergreen product. Much like Blackstone Fortress, much like Curse City was in the end, where it was always available pretty much for the 3+ years that it was available for. So, yeah, I don't genuinely know if it's been a success or not. I think the only person I know that's bought it is Richard because he fessed up to buying it, and I'm like, good. I would like to play it, but I don't really want to buy it. And also, one last thing, and then you can have your say, Dan. Sorry, because I've been rabbiting on. It's £160 from Games Workshop. That is extortionately expensive for a board game.
Yeah, that was going to be really my main comment. I think that's the thing. I think it's too much money. I think they've hit that point where it's drifted over into like money that's hard to justify, you know?
Yeah.
And again, we've seen within the kind of tabletop and general kind of board gaming space, physical gaming space, some absurd prices on, you know, physical artifacts. Magic the Gathering is, you know, demanding a king's ransom for their collector booster boxes at the moment because of the, you know, the buoyancy and the passion of the fan base, but ultimately the kind of resale community. There's become this sort of trend within Magic where they can go, oh, you want to buy a collector booster box? That's £300 or whatever it is.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, you're getting 12 booster packs of cardboard, and that, that's an absurd amount of money for what you're getting, really, when you think about it. But obviously, there is a value to that in terms of what you can sell it on for or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's something of an outlier. To me, if you're going to sell a board game and you're going to be charging £160 for it, I think, yeah, you're really starting to get into a situation where you are pulling on people's purse strings in a way that is difficult to ignore. And again, the miniatures are beautiful. I'm sure it's a very competent game. But 160 quid is too much money.
Well, I think there's a few issues. One of which, obviously, the price. Two, I don't think Games Workshop has done that well at marketing it. They did maybe 3 or 4 articles going into the game itself and the mechanics.
No, they've gone hard into it. They went really... Well, when they did Warhammer World Championships, they really pushed it. They've done lots of in-store promotion stuff. Store managers were sent early copies.
Have they done a playthrough video, which is what they did with the previous one?
I don't
think
know
so.
On that front. I doubt it, but yeah.
Like, it feels like they haven't done... They did, like, an adequate effort of promoting it, but not, like, an insanely interesting one. I think for me, I was, like, really suspicious of how good the flat board book would be, and I wanted to see it actually being used, and I had to basically wait till Guerrilla Miniature Games did a review of it where he sort of showed it, because the photography in the Warhammer community article was always showing you like the first one laid down, and it didn't seem like it was as super flat as I would have liked it. And I'm still a little bit skeptical of price wise.
Well, you're never gonna be able to get it truly flat with a hardback binding. Because the spine alone is always going to create a problem, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but I think they've designed it in a way where it can lay a lot flatter than a normal hardback book. So I think it's got some kind of folding mechanic where it can sort of lean over and lie flat. But yeah, the images I've seen look like even then there's still a slight bump in the middle, which, I don't know if that would be annoying to play on or if it would be fine and I'm just sort of overthinking it. But yeah, so... Go on.
No, I just think, I think ultimately my main concern with it is the price point. I also think that, I think it's price point, mate. I think that's the killer. I think any kind of enthusiasm you have for it is killed off by the price, and then essentially, obviously, gorgeous miniatures, but very, very heavily detailed. Again, to me, I think it would have been better to them to have maybe gone slightly less detailed and maybe more kind of board game centric with it. But again, this is the thing with like Warhammer Quest, is that they still want to obviously maintain their position of making the best miniatures in the world, and they want to maintain that kind of quality. It's an integral part of their brand. But yeah, I think to me, basically, once you've drifted above 120 quid for this thing, you've gone into the realm of lunacy, basically.
And I think you can get it for around about 120 or 128, I think, from like third-party retailers in the UK. I don't know about other countries. So it is possible, and that would be the only way I would buy it if I was really keen to buy it. But as you say, 160 feels like they priced it based on you're a Nurgle player and you're wanting this collection for your army, and that's how they valued the price of the miniatures. For example, Jaws of a Lion, which this game takes heavy inspiration from in terms of like the book format, and I think even some of the cards representing actions, that is very similar to Jaws of a Lion. That is £40 as a board game. Now, admittedly, I think you get 4 miniatures in the game representing the heroes, and everything else is like a card image token that then gets sort of stuck onto a base that holds the cardboard, a bit like the old sort of second ed dreadnought. So obviously that's a much cheaper way of doing it because there isn't tons of miniatures. and that's priced at £40. So you're saying basically an extra £120 worth of miniatures for effectively a similar quality game. And it's just like, yeah, it's just too much of a hard ask. Although I met a guy today who said he bought it. So I think there are, and I've seen other people go on about it as well. So it feels like there are people out there buying it, but it doesn't feel like it's overwhelmingly like, oh my God, we've all got to go and buy it. And I think the other downside that there might be, I think there's two. I think one is it looks too much like Underworlds in terms of the single play mat arena dungeon that you're playing in. And it's less of a dungeon crawler where you're building the dungeon as you go. Or even like Curse City or Blackstone Fortress, where you build the dungeon and then you play. So to me, that's a bit off-putting. And then I think the other thing that might hamper it is I don't think Curse City was that positively received from a rules point of view. I got the impression from a lot of reviews that it was quite repetitive and grindy once you played a few missions. And also the fact that it was so terribly supported afterwards. They came up with 2 expansion packs. None of them had miniatures in. They were just sort of, you buying some card and some booklets, and that was it. And while the replayability value that it seemed to give you sounded interesting, it wasn't as well supported as Blackstone Fortress. Blackstone Fortress, I think, is like their high bar of modern board games, where I think they probably did like 6 to 8 expansions. It felt like they did a lot of them. Some of them did sell out quite quickly, but they did an awful lot. They all contained miniatures. They all contained like, extra cards and bits and pieces in it that, give you these bolt-ons to the game. And it felt like that was, you would have much better confidence buying into this system if that was what they had also done for Curse City. Whereas now it feels like I'm buying this board game that costs £160. Are there going to be any expansions to it? Is there going to be 1? Is there going to be 2? Is there going to be none at all? Who knows? And it's that uncertainty and doubt that Games Workshop's created that I think potentially might hamper sales as well.
Yeah, and there's no real reassurance or really any kind of meaningful insights as of yet as towards, is the game any good? Is it fun to play? And that's what you're asking yourself, right? When you're being asked to drop 160 quid, you've got to kind of enjoy what you're getting into, and I think that's it fundamentally. Like, Silver Tower, okay, yeah, fair enough. Silver Tower came out 10 years ago now. But, Silver Tower was under £100. I can't remember how much I paid for it back in the day, but it wasn't 100 quid. It would have been like 90 quid or something back then. Now, obviously, that was nearly 10 years ago, etc., etc. But the strange thing is, I think, in terms of consumer buying habits at the moment, certainly in my own thing, is, even though 100 quid today probably is worth a great deal less than it was 10 years ago, it still has that same psychological barrier to me. Like, I can't... I can't just drop 100 quid on something without thinking, oh, hang on a second, that's a lot of money. So then to essentially be closing in on twice that, 200 quid, it's like, okay, fair enough, 160 isn't 200 quid, but it's a lot closer to 200 quid than it is to 100. So it's that thing, isn't it? Like, these psychological barriers hit you. And then at that point, you have to know it's good, because at this stage, you're looking at it going, well, what else can I buy for 160 quid? And you start to think about comparable products or things that, that you might want to spend more money on. Like, you might be eyeing up another Warhammer army or another unit or another combat patrol or whatever it may be. And you might be like, actually, no, I'm going to prioritize adding another, I'm going to prioritize adding another 20 Terminators to my army. That's a better use of my 160 quid, because I'll get a lot more out of that. This just isn't for me, because that's the problem. 160 quid kind of removes the impulse. It's do you actually really want this? Have they convinced you that you want this? And I think the answer is they haven't convinced enough people that they have to have it for that price. I think that it's too much money.
Yeah.
For what you're getting. As
a comparison, on Games Workshop, Necromunda is £115, which comes with some terrain. Kill Team as the very basic starter set is £70. And I believe Blood Bowl is £88, I want to say. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, the brand new edition is £88. So quite a lot cheaper. And again, you're getting a lot less miniatures. I guess you're just getting a board and not, and the rules are ultimately very similar to previous editions, but refined. So maybe you could say, the work and effort that's gone into a new edition of Blood Bowl is very, nowhere near as much as what you've got in Warhammer Quest. But yeah, the general sort of thing I saw from the reviews I'd watched is that there's a lot less role play. You're not putting your own spin on a character, much like with the original either Hero Quest or Warhammer Quest, where it was like these are unnamed classes and you are giving it a name and you're putting your own spin on it, and there were roleplay elements to it with the extra books. This isn't. You are playing a named character, which I feel like is what you got on Curse City as well. And it's much more streamlined from a rule set, and like a campaign mode is very sort of generic in terms of like you get some upgrades to your units. And then the last criticism I saw was that the art style is very generic Warhammer, whereas the Curse City art style had a really unique, like sketchy look and color palette. It was sort of like black, white, and red. It looked really evocative and interesting, and it hasn't got that, I think. So I think that there's been some extra sort of design choices which has made it slightly less compelling than and to be fair, like I would say the vampires as a theme for Curse City is way more popular with everyone, because it's just, Hammer horror, Dracula, classic fantasy, whereas Nurgle doesn't have that quite same appeal. Yeah, they're cool models. It's a cool Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy setting, but it doesn't harken universal understanding in the same way that vampires have. So I feel like it's a slightly more of an uphill battle to maybe make it appeal to non-Warhammer players than what Curse City had. I think ultimately Curse City was just a fantastic setting, and like a location and the world building with it just was instantly much more likable than this. The concept of the Abbey I think is really cool, but beyond that, like nothing's. Yeah, it just hasn't wowed me in a way where it makes me go, "Oh my god, I feel like I'd be missing out on this if I didn't buy it."
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? At the end of the day, and that is where they kind of fail. And when you consider that, like Age of Sigmar starter sets, so you can buy the Age of Sigmar Spearhead starter sets that gives you a Skaven Spearhead and a Stormcast Eternals Spearhead that will start you off if you're intrigued in terms of building like an army or whatever. It'll give you some miniatures with which that you can start building a legitimate army, but more importantly, it will get you into Spearhead, which is itself a really good game and recognised as such. Like people really love playing Spearhead because it's super fun. And yeah, you can get that from Games Workshop today for £134. So for, 26 less pounds, I can get a game that is universally applauded and lauded for the fact that it's really good, with two factions, and have probably, although within slightly more complex parameters, a enjoyable gameplay experience between two people where we can play against each other and the game works. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Quest has got the grids and the heroes and the sense of adventure, I suppose. But if the RPG elements are lacking, then what does it have really?
Well, the one unique thing it does, I believe, is it has a solo play option. So if you have no mates, it is perfect for you. So actually, for me...
Is that, though? Can you honestly tell me, and then, to be fair to anyone out there who does it, fair play to you, but can you honestly tell me you would actually ever play a board game like that on your own? Would you ever do it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've done Escape the Dark Castle, which is slightly different. It's not miniatures, but there is dice rolling. I've played it on my own a few times. I've gone, let's see if I can do it. Or quite often I'd have someone come around, I'd play it with them, and then once they've left, I'd be like, I'll just have another go.
Really? Oh, fair play, mate.
So
well,
I would do sometimes. Have I ever played Warhammer Quest on my own? I feel like I might have, or at the very least I've done it with, which is a lot harder to do. I've done it with the first edition Mansions of Madness board game, which is very complicated. And predominantly I was doing that to learn the rules so I could then play it with other people more so. But I was also just generally curious, and it doesn't really work as a solo game. It's not designed for that, but I sort of try to make it work as best as I can. And maybe when I was a kid, I probably played Hero Quest or Warhammer Quest, like the 95 version, on my own. But I was a kid, and that's what you did, I think. But is that the best, most optimal way of playing it? Not at all. Is it as fun? No.
No, that's
I like that it is an option, because sometimes, life gets in the way. People live far apart from each other. So having that option is a nice addition, even if it's catering to a very sort of small minority.
No, fine. I stand corrected, and I apologise to those who I may have
Can't all be Mr. Sociable, Dan.
Well, indeed, and I appreciate that. But for me, the joy of it is playing the game with people, and I think I struggle to find the motivation to sit and roll dice and play games like that by myself personally.
I think what I would have liked is if they had probably if the miniatures of a most expensive thing from there, that they took a couple of the units out of the monsters, like the witch lady with the bug. Phenomenal model, and it's probably my favourite, but to me that could have just been in an expansion. Maybe you go, cool, let's take the Beastmen out and the Beastman character out as well. And that's another expansion, and then the game is like 80 quid to 100 quid. That feels like a much easier buy-in, especially when you're trying to be like, oh, it's quick and easy to set up and play, and it's like, well, it's not if I've got 60 odd miniatures to build, or 48, or however many it is. And to be fair, I think in the review I saw it was talking about how the instruction booklet tells you the order in which to build them for the adventure, because obviously the first few adventures only uses some of them. So it's like, cool, here's the initial ones in addition to the heroes that you need to build to get going, and then you can worry about the others as the adventure progresses. So that is a kind of a neat addition to it. But yeah, I just find the maps quite uninspiring as well. I think it's a combination of the fact that hexes rather than squares. It has that vibe of Underworlds, which I like Underworlds to an extent. I played a few versions of it quite a lot over the years, but I just find the maps really uninteresting. Like they're almost like crammed with so much detail you can't see anything, and it just merges all into one. And that was my problem with the Silver Tower, is that they were just so mad and crazy, all the rooms, that they just felt meaningless. Whereas the old Warhammer Quest ones is like, cool, there's this one with black and white tiles because it's the kitchen. Here's the one with the hole in the ground with chains in because it's the dungeon. And it's like, okay, my mind can instantly recognize what all of these are. They're very tropey, but also iconic at the same time, and simple enough that they're not getting in the way of what's going on. Whereas I feel like there's almost much happening in these ones. It just feels a bit confusing. And, this is just me looking at the images online and people's videos. I would also really want to go see it in person down a Games Workshop before I cast my final judgment, because I might see it in person and be like, oh wow, these are really cool. These are great designs. These work. So it's a bit hard to see that sort of stuff, which is sort of why I would have liked Games Workshop to have done a playthrough video.
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. So getting caught in my throat. But yeah, look, long story short, whatever. Look, it could be a good game. I'll wait and find out. And if it is, maybe I'll buy it down the road. But for me right now, I'm like, nah, you're all right. It's fair. I feel no FOMO. I feel no obligation. I feel no urgency to purchase this. But I'm very grateful that Richie did, because it means that eventually we'll get to play it, and that's fine. And we can go, oh, good. Glad we didn't buy that.
Well, I'm also living in the world where I really want to play Curse City, and I'm still building those models. So it's like I need to, at least for my own sanity, finish Curse City models and play that game at least a handful of times before I could justify doing a new edition. And I think the last thing I'll say on it is, I'm pretty sure in one of the Games Workshop articles they said, "Don't worry, lads. If it sells out, we will restock this." I'm pretty sure there was a thing that they said in one of the articles. So by their own metric, it perhaps isn't as a success as they would have wanted it to have been, because they were expecting it to sell out.
Maybe. I'm sure they would have approached it with that sort of attitude. And again, I know they recently talked about that for the Scouring book. I think that was one of the things that people were.
Yes, yeah, they did definitely about that. So unless I'm getting the two mixed up, or they said it for both.
You might be, or you might not be. Who knows? But
that is true.
On the whole, I mean, at the end of the day, lots of aspects of it look really cool. It's just not something that's compelling me to do it. I just know within myself that I'm not a massive Warhammer Quest player. And if I was to play a Warhammer Quest game or be compelled to do so, I'd just play one of the versions that I already have, and be perfectly happy with that. You know, there is nothing compelling me to pick that up. So yeah, there we go. It's joyous times.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll do, I reckon. Whatever that was is what it was, and we've done it now. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully you enjoy our ramblings on these various topics, and will join us in the next episode where we will actually talk about the events of the narrative that is the Pariah Nexus as we build towards the 500 worlds. Isn't that right, Phil?
That is the plan. So we best get reading.
Absolutely. But until then, goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.